That's as easy as it gets. It will get harder. Find a definition for the arithmetic sequence whose first term is 5 and fifth term is 11. So we don't know what the common difference is. We do know what the first term is, but we are missing some information here. We're told that it's an arithmetic sequence, and we need to find a definition. That means write a formula for it. So finding that definition, I'm going to write out my formula for an arithmetic sequence. U sub n equals u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. And we have two pieces of information here. You should totally write them down as well before we get going. U sub 1 is 5, and the fifth term is 11. And then u sub 5 is 11. Now you can take both of those pieces of information and plug them into the formula. We have our u sub 1. So u sub n equals u sub 1, which is 5, plus n minus 1 times d. What we don't have here is d. D needs to be a number in order for the formula to be complete, whereas n is going to stay n, because it's going to be like our input, like f of x always needs to have an x somewhere in the equation following. U sub n, there always needs to be an n somewhere at least once in the equation. So we want to keep n as a variable, but we want d to be a number. D is a constant that we need to find. So d equals question mark. So here we're going to take our second piece of information, that u sub 5 equals 11. U sub 5 equals 11, which is 5 plus, and then if it's u sub 5, it'll be 5 minus 1, so 4 times d. All right, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides and get 6 equals 4d. Divide both sides by 4, and I get 3 over 2 is d. So now we've solved for d. It's a system of equations. We had two unknowns, and since we were given the first term, it kind of fell together nicely. You won't always be given the first term, so you would have to be making a system of equations. But we know how to solve for systems of equations. Whenever you're given something like this, you should first write out your formula from your formula packet, and then write out the pieces of information you're given. U sub 1 equals 5, U sub 5 equals 11. Start plugging it in and realize for this formula, in order to have a completed formula, you need to have U sub 1 and you need to have D. Those will be your two unknowns. So if you're not given information right away on one of those unknowns, then you need to make two equations and make a system of equations, either isolate and substitute in, so solve through substitution, or remember your calculator does it all for you as well. Okay, we are almost done. I need to plug this all in and get a final equation. U sub n equals u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. And that's it. All right, example 3. Susie decides to deposit an initial amount of 1,200 euro into a savings account on January 1st. The account pays 5% simple interest on the initial amount of money. Assuming she does not deposit or withdraw any money, how much money will be in the account at the end of 10 years? So 5% simple interest. This is typically, interest problems are not arithmetic sequences. Interest problems are that you take a certain percentage and you add it in, and then you take a new percentage and add it in, right? So you're taking a percentage, so you're repeatedly multiplying by 1.05 if it's 5% interest. Repeated multiplication is not arithmetic sequences here. Now, this is an arithmetic sequence because of a very tricky wording that they used. So this is IB kind of in a nutshell. On the initial amount of money. That means that they take 5% on the initial amount, your 1,200, and that's it. They only take that 5% of the 1,200 and add it in every single time. So if we find out what 5% of 1,200, so 0.05 times 1200. 0.05 is the decimal representation of 5%. And that's 60. So we're only adding in 60 every It doesn't tell you whether the interest comes due every month or every year. I'm going to assume every year. I'll pull up your textbook real quick and double check. I want you to go ahead and start making a table of the values. What will the first term, or the first term be? It's going to be, your first one is 1200, and then your second term is going to be adding in that 60. Yeah, it's every year. So U sub 1 is 1200. Come on. U sub 2 is 1260. Oh my God, I'm going to throw this laptop across the computer, across the room. Come on. U sub 3 is 1,320. So our first term is right there. Our common difference is 60. We have all of the information we need in order to make a formula. Then we're going to use that formula to figure out what U sub 10 is. So U sub n is going to be U sub 1 plus n minus 1 times your common difference. So then U sub 10 is going to be 1200 plus 9 times 60. Which is I lied to you. I'm so sorry, guys. This is U sub 0. So this is at the beginning. Because at the end of the first year is when you get 60 euro added on. The end of the second year, you get 60 plus 60 added on, which means at the end of your 10th year, this guy instead is going to be 1260. So 9 times 60 plus 1260 is 1,800 euro. So we have to, with the word problems, we have to make sure that we're keeping in mind the pattern of what's happening and readjust our formula and our expectations. So the first term here was not 1,200 because that was our initial amount. Our first term is at the end of the first year. And at the end of the first year, we do get 60 euro added on. So our first term is 1,200 plus 60. And then from there, it keeps building. Okay, given the sequence, we've gotten 3 different terms that are all in a row. So actually that's really nice. All of these are puzzles. They can all be solved in a bunch of different ways. So the fact that we have the 50th term, the 51st term, and the 52nd term, we can see what the common difference is because we're told that it's, we're not told it's an arithmetic sequence, but since it's in our arithmetic sequence notes, we know it's an arithmetic sequence. In the future, you will be told this is an arithmetic sequence, find the first term. So we know that our common difference here is 5. Yes. Because from 6 to 11 is 5, plus 5 to get to 16. So our common difference is 5. We don't know what u sub 1 is. But we do have a go-to formula. U sub n equals u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times your common difference. So then we're going to plug in what we do have in order to find the first term. U sub n, let's do u sub 50. U sub 50, which is 6, is equal to u sub 1, which we don't know, plus 50 minus 1, so 49, times 5, our common difference. So 49 times 5 is 245. Which means we just need to do 6 minus 245. And negative 239 is our first term. Okay, that is it for our notes for today. This is Arithmetic Sequences. As long as you know that this is a formula that you have in your formula packet, it only goes with repeated addition, then you should have all the information you need to be able to tackle your homework. Obviously, IB problems get a little bit complicated because they're word problems. They're supposed to be puzzles, things that you've never seen before. So definitely just remember that this is the formula for this entire homework. So make sure you write it at the top of the page, include it with all of your planning before you get started on a problem solving process. And it's just a puzzle of seeing how things work together. And you've got it. Okay.